If you're heading out on a bike ride that's maybe an hour or so or more, or you're riding a considerable distance away from your car or from your home, then it's worth taking some essentials with you to help you out in the case of an emergency, like a mechanical, because they do happen, or just things to keep you going. So here's the stuff I will take on a trail ride. Number one, water. I think the general rule here, or the one that I've always been told, is if you're doing exercise for any more than half an hour, then you're gonna need some water to keep you going. For bigger, longer trail rides where I'm doing maybe 3 hours plus, then I'll think about putting something in my water, like electrolytes. I have those little tablets, I drop one in. But for short rides, I don't bother, to be honest. I just keep water because it's easier to clean your bottle out after. It's horrible when you put something in there and then you forget about it. So I'll try and sort of keep those for the bigger rides. And my preferred way for short rides is to just use a water bottle on my bike, if possible. Obviously, some bikes don't have bottle cages. So then you have to look at alternatives, and they are either a backpack or a hip pack. Basically using, you know, your hydration bladder inside there. Again, for bigger rides, I'll use more, so 1.5 litres, 2 litres if I'm out for a big ride, and maybe think about filling it up as well. Punctures, I guess, are still the most common mechanical. So there's a couple of ways of doing this. I use tubeless on everything. I have in the past sort of risked it and just taken a tubeless plug system, because most of the time they're going to fix your problem. But if you get a bigger rip in your tyre, then a tubeless plug isn't going to fix it, and you're going to have a tube. So some bikes, you'll find that they'll have those funky new storage boxes where you can put a tube in and leave it there, or you can get one of those straps on your bike. Otherwise, you're going to have to find a different way of carrying a tube. So this is my tubeless tyre plug system. This is actually one that can strap to the bike, but I leave that in my backpack most of the time, to be honest, just so I can take that with me. If you can just plug your tyre with a tubeless system, it's so much easier than having to take the tyre off, get super messy, and put a tube in. So in here, I've got kind of, I don't know what you call it, like the plug, the kind of stabby bit, and that's where you put your rubber slugs or whatever you want to call them. And you just, I've got a nice little stash there. Put them in there, and you will just punch them into tyre, and they're really good. I've mentioned this loads of times, these style of videos, but in the past, I've put these in my tyre, it's fixed it completely, the sealant inside tyre has completely sealed it, and then that will last the lifetime of the tyre. You might want to trim it down so it's not sticking out too much, but they're really, really good. Like I say, you wear the tyre out, and that system still works. If you can't do that, there's my spare tube that I will carry, sometimes even carry 2 of these if I'm going for a really big ride. And then the next thing you're going to need is a way of pumping it back up. Obviously, you've got a couple of options again. Mini pump, I think that's an essential thing. I've always carried mini pumps. CO2 is great, it will get you out of a problem, but if you get another puncture and you use your one single CO2 canister, then you're still kind of stuffed. Obviously a pump, you can use that forever. So some people love to rely on these. I do like them for a shorter ride. I might just carry my plugs and a CO2, but for bigger rides, I'll always carry a pump as well. I'll always take a multi-tool as well. I do check my bikes fairly regularly, but you don't want a bolt coming loose because that does happen. Things like axles, if they're, sometimes they're the QR style where you can just do it by hand, but sometimes a rear axle will come loose on a bike if you're riding it hard. I know the vibrations do that, or the rear mech can come loose, and that can completely write off a ride. But really, for ones that I know I'm quite a long way from anywhere, I'll make sure my multi-tool has a chain tool on there so I can fix a broken chain. I don't always carry the power links, to be honest, because you can do it with this if you need to. Obviously, there's different multi-tools available, bigger ones, more options for getting you out of disasters. This one's got loads and loads of tools, knives, an 8mm on there if your crank comes loose, all sorts of little spanners and things. So I guess it depends, the further you go, the more tools you're going to want, really. There's a few bikes on the market now, I know Specialized or Bayer Rallon do it as well, where there's a little multi-tool stashed somewhere in the bike so you can leave it there and forget about ever having to pick it up and take it with you. A tyre lever, or two actually, I've definitely been caught out in the past, so I thought I didn't need them. And then you get a puncture, you need to fit a tube and you can't get your tyre off because it's so tight. And they're so simple, so light, little piece of plastic like this. And they are super useful. Like I say, some tyres are almost impossible to get off without them. Some aren't, but you will find actually a lot of multi-tools will have them built in. So you maybe don't even need to carry an extra, but there you go. Both of mine have tyre levers built in. Any ride over an hour, I'll also take some food. So if it's an hour to two, I'll probably take something like a flapjack or, you know, power bar, energy bar, something like that, keep going. Longer rides, I'd like to take normal food. So me and Blake did that bike packing the other week. Where we're out for sort of 5 or 6 hours. I will just stash my backpack with loads of normal food, plus some gels and those bars as kind of an emergency, because I'd rather try and eat normal, keep my stomach as normal through that day. Or you can plan your ride around visiting a cafe, maybe halfway, but don't make the mistake I've done loads of times. Make sure you check when the cafe's open. Sometimes they're not open on a Monday. There's a couple of extras that maybe don't seem essential, but I'll carry them because they'll get you out of an emergency and don't weigh anything. So a little stash of zip ties, you never know when you might need these, and an inner gear cable. I've snapped cables before. If I've not checked them regularly enough, they can sort of vibrate and rattle. And if they snap, you're kind of stuck in that hardest gear. So they don't weigh anything. So if you've got a regular pack that you take on these big rides, just buy an extra, leave it in there. You'll forget you even have it until you need it. Quite often I will take an extra layer. Of course, this sort of depends on the time of year it is and where you're living, that you might not need this. But some of these things, like, they're super lightweight and stuffable and windproof, and that can be, you know, a difference in enjoying the ride or really suffering your whole way around. Then I'll take that with me. And like I say, you can stuff it inside your pack, or sometimes packs have a bit of like a expandable bit on the back, chuck that in. The final thing I'll take on every ride I do is my mobile phone. For safety more than anything. I know some people maybe want to carry ID just in case something bad happens, so people, you know, you might have your medical ID on there as well so people can help you out. I use my phone for that, so obviously I can use it to ring people in emergency. Also, others can get my medical ID from this, so obviously I'll use it for Instagram as well whilst I'm out there. Most of the time I actually carry it in my pocket. I've got, you know, trousers or my riding shorts have a nice pocket. I have once bent a phone in that big crash I had in the Andes Pacifico. I landed on that leg and my phone bent a little bit, although it was completely fine. Otherwise, you can stick it in your backpack, or some have some really nice pockets to stuff your phone into. The only thing left to work out is the best carrying solution for you. So for longer rides, I do like a backpack, especially if I'm taking more clothes with me. Just got that larger room for stuffing things in. But I actually prefer on shorter rides to go for a lighter option, use a hip pack, or a mixture actually, of strapping parts to my bike, using storage options, and then a hip pack to carry the rest. I guess the only other thing I do like to take on a trail ride, either for navigation, but really more for like recording my ride, is a computer or my watch. So I use the GPS function on there. Let me know if I've missed anything and anything you like to take on a trail ride. Otherwise, get out there, get into the woods, do some riding.